Looking at how banks operate, your company is a big shareholder in Wells Fargo.
Right.
You love Wells Fargo.
I love it.
You love Goldman Sachs, especially right now. You've put billions into Goldman Sachs. But do you really think, Warren, that banks across the board, big banks in this country, are operating in a way that makes them less dangerous to investors? Of course, depositors there's a safeguard for them through the FDIC, but to investors and also just to the entire system, are banks really operating in a safer way?
Yeah, somewhat. But I mean, there's been more change at some than others. I mean, Wells was never big in trading activity or something of that sort.
They're big in mortgage activity.
Yeah, well, and you're going to need $3 trillion of mortgages, or $2 to $3 trillion of residential mortgages a year, and in the end, you could help the mortgage situation enormously if you wanted to put a law in that you had to have a given amount of down payment, and you couldn't get a mortgage unless your income was a multiple of the payments. Congress is very reluctant to do that, but they're.
Would that be the single piece of advice you'd give Congress right now to protect consumers?
Well, what you run in then is people say, well, yeah, but you've got a house more, and I want a house, and I don't have but a 10% down payment. But if you want to avoid a real estate fiasco and lots of mortgage foreclosures, all you need to do is get a reasonable down payment initially and have the mortgage payment be not more, and maximum mortgage payment be not more than, say, a third of income. You'll still have people that become unemployed and lose their houses, but basically you won't have a foreclosure problem if you do that.
Well, it's interesting when you look at the spending on the parts of American consumers. It was out of whack, and now we're saving more than we have in decades. When you look at the spending in terms of our nation, it's sort of the reverse. We have this nation spending our way deeper and deeper into a hole. You've written about this. You've talked about it more recently. The threat of a ballooning national debt. We have China holding a lot of our debt. How much longer will they want to? How much longer will people want to buy U.S. Treasuries? How much of a roadblock to recovery is our debt issue at this point, Warren?
Well, it's not a roadblock to recovery yet. And in a sense, it's leading us to recovery, because you do need the government to step in and stimulate when the consumer is holding back and when people are trying to deleverage. But we can't keep doing it forever, and weaning ourselves away from huge deficits is going to be very difficult. That's going to be the challenge of the government and to some extent the Fed, but it's really the government in terms of fiscal policy. That's going to be the challenge before too long. But I think we've done the right thing to run this sort of deficit at this point, but not for very long.
I want to talk about the average American and their savings and their portfolio right now. They've recovered some of their losses, but nowhere near the losses they've seen in the last year and a half. There are those that will argue stocks are overvalued. Right now, you look at a company like AIG with the huge run-up over the past few weeks. Where's the intrinsic value there? That's a big question. Are stocks, Warren, overvalued right now? You said you're buying them this morning.
Yeah, I'm buying them
this morning. What are you buying?
You won't get that out of me, but you will get out of me the fact I'm buying. No, I've got orders in on 2 stocks today, and we'll probably buy somewhere between $50 and $100 million worth of those stocks today. I don't look at them as buying a stock. I look at them as buying a piece of a company, and I'm able to buy these small pieces of these companies at what I regard as a very attractive price compared to what they're going to be worth 10, 20, 30 years from now. And it'd be nice if I knew the exact bottom at which to buy them, but I don't have any idea when that would be. What I do know is I'm getting, in my view, having looked at the businesses and their prospects and the management and assets, earning power, I am getting more than my money's worth.
I think it was interesting, Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner said last week that banks need to ask themselves what they owe this country right now. You know, it makes you think back to JFK, what can you do for your country? And he said there's this new ethic of responsibility. What, Warren, do you think that banks owe this country right now?
Well, I think all citizens. I mean, we live in the best country in the world. It's done all kinds of things for us. I mean, the luckiest day of my life was the day that I was born, August 30th, 1930, in Omaha, Nebraska, instead of any other country in the world. So we benefit. Other people planted trees that we sit under today, and it's up to us to keep planting those trees so people have more trees to sit under in the future. So, but my experience is people on Wall Street, people on Main Street, people on side streets, we all have some realization of that. We put it into our lives in various ways, and then there's other times when we forget it. I mean, it's just human nature.
Bankers are villains in the eyes of a lot of Americans right now, yet it is the banking institutions of this country without which small and large business could not operate. They could not move their paper. They could not pay their bills. Talk about the unsung heroes, if you will.
Well, no, I think the main heroes have been, frankly, Bernanke and Paulson and Geithner and others that are, and Sheila Bair and others that are, and there's probably a lot of names I don't know, but at the worst financial crisis in my lifetime, they basically did the right things. Now, you know, everybody would have done this one a little differently or that one with hindsight, but you had people who were working 100-hour weeks who, with enormous pressure, incomplete information, acted in a bold and fast way last September and October that really kept us from going over the precipice. So I think they're the number one heroes in this situation. I give them great credit.
Has the administration contacted you lately? Have you contacted them? If so, about what?
No, I talked with a large group of Democratic senators last week at a luncheon meeting, but no, I would never pick up the phone probably to call some important official. I suppose if I knew there's some group planning a nuclear attack or something, but no, I just don't. I wouldn't do that.
But are you glad that you had a hand in somewhat in the role of the government in the last, year or so? I mean, everyone listens to you at a time like this morning.
I'm glad I worked for getting President Obama elected. I thought John McCain is a wonderful man, and I think he's a classy human being and senator. But I think Barack Obama is the president we need now, and incidentally, I think Ben Bernanke is the Fed chairman we need, and that becomes at certain times that becomes almost as important.